They told you masturbation was something you'd grow out of. Something for teenagers, maybe lonely young men in their 20s. They told you that after marriage, after 50, after 60, you'd have no business with it anymore. They were wrong. Not just a little wrong, dangerously wrong. Because here's what they never told you. Masturbation after 60 could be the very thing keeping you alive. Keeping your hormones balanced. Your prostate healthy. Your blood flowing. Your spirit, connected. But instead, they handed you silence. Shame. They made you feel like this part of yourself was something to be hidden. Or worse, forgotten. I'm Dr. James. I've been a men's health specialist for over 30 years. I've treated thousands of men over 60, and let me tell you something plainly. The ones who stay connected to their bodies don't just live longer, they live better. They laugh more. Sleep deeper. Feel stronger. And yes, they still feel desire. Real, grounded, powerful desire. But that's not what most men experience. No, most men suffer in silence. They stop touching themselves. Or they keep doing it the same rushed, mechanical way they did at 25, not realizing their body has changed. Their needs have changed. Their wiring has changed. And the consequences? They're everywhere. Erectile dysfunction that creeps in like a fog. A prostate that swells in the dark. A nervous system that slowly disconnects. Hormones that flatline. And the worst of all, a man who begins to disappear from himself. Because when you stop touching yourself, not just sexually, but intentionally, you send a dangerous signal to your body. This part of me no longer matters. And your body listens. It downshifts. It begins to shut systems down. I've sat across from men with tears in their eyes, not because they couldn't get it up, but because they didn't feel anything anymore. Not just in their body, but in their soul. They weren't broken. They were just disconnected. And no one ever told them how it happened. So let me be the first. Masturbation, when done right, with care, with awareness, isn't a guilty pleasure. It's a biological necessity. It supports testosterone. It clears the prostate. It preserves erectile function. It reduces shame. And it tells your brain you're still here. Still alive. Still worth responding to. But doing it wrong. Too fast, too forceful, too detached. Or not doing it at all. That's when the damage starts. That's when systems begin to rot quietly behind closed doors. Over the next few minutes, I'm going to walk you through 7 powerful truths about masturbation every man over 60 should have been taught, but never was. Truths that could help you regain your vitality, your sensitivity, and your connection to the man you used to be. But before we go any further, I want to ask you something. If there was one daily ritual, one private moment, that could help you sleep better, feel better, think clearer, and age slower, wouldn't you want to know what it is? Because the truth is, you've had it with you all along. You just need to learn how to use it differently. So let's begin. And I promise, by the end of this, you'll never look at your body the same way again. Number 1. The silent training, how you've accidentally rewired your body against pleasure. You just need to learn how to use it differently. That's where we begin, with the part no one ever taught you to question. Not the act itself, but how you've been doing it for decades. Because here's what most men don't realize. Your body has been learning from you every single time you touch it. And what you've taught it, without even knowing, is the fast track to dysfunction. I've had hundreds of older men sit across from me, eyes low, voice quiet. Some married, some widowed, some long-time single. And when they finally opened up, really opened up, here's what they confessed. Yeah, I still masturbate, but I don't feel much anymore. I can only finish if I do it a certain way. Or the one that always hits me hardest. It's like my body forgot how to feel. And I always tell them the same thing. It didn't forget. It was trained to disconnect. Every rushed, mechanical, mindless session. Every time you grabbed the same spot, used the same grip, stared at a screen, scrolled, pressed harder, moved faster just to get it over with. You were teaching your nervous system to narrow its response. Not expand it. Not deepen it. Not connect with it. Narrow it. Your brain learned to equate pleasure with speed. With pressure. With pixels. With tension in your jaw and shoulders while you chase release with zero presence. And here's the part that stings. Your brain is a fast learner. So what happens over time? Your sensitivity starts to fade. You need more stimulation to feel the same thing. You reach for stronger images, tighter pressure, weirder routines, just to feel something. And when that stops working, you start avoiding intimacy altogether. Not because you've lost desire. But because your nervous system only responds to a very specific sequence you accidentally rehearsed for years. And the moment you step outside that sequence, say, with a real partner, or even when trying to slow down, your body freezes. No response. No arousal. No finish. You think something's broken. But it's not. It's just overtrained in the wrong direction. This is what I call silent conditioning. It's not dramatic. It's not painful. It's just gradual erosion. And here's where it gets worse. This rewiring can lead to delayed ejaculation, porn-induced erectile dysfunction, PID, even anorgasmia, the inability to climax at all. And these aren't rare conditions. They're quietly affecting millions of men. The cruelest part. Most of them never realize they did it to themselves. Not out of weakness. Not out of shame. Just lack of awareness. But here's the part no one says out loud. When you stay stuck in that pattern, you don't just lose sensation. You start losing parts of yourself. You stop feeling confident. You stop making eye contact. You avoid the mirror. You stop reaching for your partner, or for yourself, because it feels awkward, foreign, disconnected. And little by little, you vanish. Not just sexually. Emotionally. Mentally. Spiritually. That's the cost of silent training. It's not just about your erection. It's about how you walk into a room. How you carry your chest. How you believe, deep down, that you still matter. Now, let me be clear. This isn't your fault. You were never taught another way. But now you know. And here's the good news. The body can relearn. The nervous system is plastic, it can rebuild, rewire, reconnect. But not if you keep doing what's familiar. Not if you rush. Not if you treat masturbation like a chore or a shameful release. It has to change. It has to slow down. It has to become a practice of awareness, not just sensation. Because when you shift the way you touch yourself, you begin to retrain your brain to feel again. You give it permission to expand, not shrink. To connect, not detach. But this brings us to the next hidden danger. Because while mindless masturbation can rewire your pleasure, not masturbating at all, that can quietly build up pressure where you least expect it. Inside your prostate. And the consequences of that kind of buildup? They don't just disrupt your sleep. They can put your entire health at risk. Let me show you how. Number 2. The forgotten release, why not ejaculating might be hurting you. They can put your entire health at risk. Not just your hormones. Not just your performance. But your prostate, your sleep, your immune system, even your longevity. Let me tell you about David. David was 68 when he first walked into my office. He was the type of man who carried himself with quiet dignity. Buttoned shirt, polished shoes, handshake firm but guarded. He didn't come to talk about sex. He came because he was getting up 5, sometimes 6 times a night to pee. Said he felt a deep ache in his pelvis, like something pressing from the inside. Tired. Irritable. Losing sleep. He assumed it was just part of getting older. So I asked him something most doctors wouldn't. When was the last time you ejaculated? He blinked like I'd asked him if he still played with action figures. Years, he said. I haven't had sex since my wife passed. And to be honest, I figured men my age weren't supposed to be doing that anymore. Right there. That myth. That silent lie that's been fed to men for generations. That once you hit 60 or 70, you're supposed to shut the whole system down. Retire your sex life like an old pair of boots. But here's the truth I told David, and the truth I'll tell you now. Your prostate doesn't retire. It doesn't stop working just because you do. It keeps producing seminal fluid. And if that fluid isn't released, through ejaculation, it builds up. Creates internal pressure. Stagnates. Breeds inflammation. That's not theory. That's biology. And that backup? That's what leads to pelvic discomfort. Frequent urination. Weak urine stream. Dribbling. Even pain during urination or climax. Men chalk it up to age. But most of the time, it's not aging, it's a backed up system begging for release. Now here's where it gets serious. Chronic inflammation in the prostate has been directly linked to a higher risk of prostate cancer. I'm not saying abstinence causes cancer. But I am saying this. Frequent ejaculation reduces the environment in which cancer thrives. One of the most referenced studies on this came out of Harvard. They followed almost 30,000 men over several years. And the ones who ejaculated at least 21 times a month had a significantly lower risk of developing prostate cancer than those who didn't. Let me say that again. 21 times a month. That's not teenage behavior. That's proactive, protective male health. Back to David. After we had that conversation, he started small. No pressure. No shame. Just a quiet moment of self-care every few days. Not for lust. Not for fantasy. Just for release. For health. For reconnection. And over the next couple months, he slept better. The ache began to fade. He stopped getting up 5 times a night. But the most powerful shift. His eyes. They didn't carry that dull resignation anymore. There was light again. Like a part of him had been switched back on. Because that's exactly what happened. Masturbation after 60 isn't a dirty secret. It's not a joke. It's a way of keeping the machine running. Not in a sexual sense, but in a deeply biological one. Would you ignore your blood pressure? Your cholesterol? Then why would you ignore your prostate? But here's something else most men don't expect. It's not just the lack of release that creates problems. It's the emotional weight carried around it. The shame. The silence. The guilt. Those invisible burdens don't just weigh on your mind. They twist your hormones. Raise your stress. And make every symptom worse. In the next truth, I'll show you exactly how shame, yes, emotional shame, can physically damage your health. Not just in the bedroom. But in your brain. Your sleep. Your motivation. And even your memory. What you feel about touching yourself may be doing more harm than the act itself ever could. And once you understand that link, you may never look at self-pleasure the same way again. Number 3. The guilt loop, how shame becomes a physical disease. And honestly, maybe that's the point. Because for too many men, masturbation doesn't just come with silence. It comes with shame. Deep. Quiet. Inherited shame. Not the kind you shout. The kind you carry in your posture. In the way your shoulders round when someone mentions sex. In the way your eyes drop when I ask a simple question. Do you ever touch yourself? I've seen this 100 times. A man sits across from me. Smart. Kind. Responsible. He'll tell me about his back pain, his blood pressure, his meds. But the moment we talk about masturbation, the whole room shifts. He chuckles nervously. Waves it off. Says something like, "Doc, I'm too old for that nonsense." Or, "That was for when I was a kid." But I can hear it in the silence that follows. He's not too old. He's too ashamed. And where did that shame come from? Maybe a parent who scolded you. Maybe a church that told you it was dirty. Maybe a culture that mocked desire after 60. It doesn't matter where it started, what matters is that it stuck. That shame didn't just disappear when you turned 30. It went underground. And it started whispering lies. Lies like, "You shouldn't feel this way. You're gross. You're broken. You don't deserve to enjoy your own body." And here's what those lies do over time. They change your biology. You see, shame isn't just emotional. It's chemical. When you feel guilty or wrong about something, your brain reacts. Your cortisol rises, your main stress hormone. Your immune system downshifts. Your sleep becomes shallow. Your heart rate changes. Your digestion slows. Your body goes into defense mode, even if there's nothing to fight. Now imagine carrying that kind of guilt. For decades. Every time you have a sexual thought. Every time you feel aroused. Every time you reach for yourself, and then stop short. That's chronic stress. And chronic stress is one of the most dangerous, silent killers of men over 60. It's been linked to depression, heart disease, memory loss, immune dysfunction, and even early signs of dementia. And it starts with something as simple, and as deep, as shame around your own touch. I had a patient, 72, newly divorced, polite to the bone. He came in for fatigue. Not sleeping. Feeling dull, flat, gray. We ran his labs, everything looked okay. No major issues. No medications. No obvious cause. But I saw it in his eyes, this man wasn't just tired, he was disconnected. So I asked. "When's the last time you touched yourself?" He looked away. Took a breath. Then said, "I haven't in over a decade. I just figured, that part of life was over." That's not aging. That's grief. Grief for a part of yourself you were taught to bury. Grief for sensation. For connection. For pleasure that didn't need to be justified. I didn't give him a prescription. I gave him permission. We worked slowly. Breath work. Light touch. No pressure. Just learning to be in his own skin again, without judgment. And within weeks, something shifted. He was sleeping. Smiling. He cracked a joke. His blood pressure dropped. He started showing up like a man again, not a ghost of one. Because when you let go of shame, even a little, the body remembers how to feel safe. And safety is the root of pleasure. Not intensity. Not fantasy. Safety. Presence. Connection. So here's what I want you to hear. You are not dirty. You are not weak. You are not broken for wanting to feel your own body. You are human. And human beings were made for touch, yes, even at 60, 70, 80. Especially then. And if shame can do that much damage, imagine what happens when you also stop engaging with the very thing that keeps your fire alive. Because the next truth may hit even deeper. It's about your testosterone. Not just what happens when it declines. But how that decline speeds up when you stop touching yourself altogether. And trust me, once testosterone begins to fade, it doesn't just take your sex drive. It takes your strength, your focus, your confidence, and maybe, your sense of being a man. Let me show you how to get it back. Number 4. The hormonal truth, why your testosterone follows your behavior. Because the truth about testosterone isn't what most men have been told. They think it's just about age. Like it drops the minute you hit 60 and there's nothing you can do but accept it. But that's not how it works. Yes, testosterone levels naturally decline with time. But the speed, the severity, the symptoms, those are shaped by how you live. And more specifically, by whether or not you still engage with the part of you that wants to feel alive. Desire, touch, sexual energy, these aren't just emotional. They're signals. Signals that tell your body, keep producing. I remember a man named Frank. He was 73, a retired firefighter. Still had a presence about him, broad shoulders, hands like tree trunks. But when he walked into my office, he looked hollow. He said, "Doc, I feel like I'm fading." He wasn't in pain. But he wasn't himself either. No energy. No interest in anything. He wasn't sleeping well. Didn't feel strong. Said his motivation was gone. I asked about his testosterone. He said no one had ever checked. So we ran the labs. And sure enough, his numbers were barely above clinical deficiency. He wasn't surprised. He just shrugged and said, "I guess that's what happens when you get old." But I wasn't done. I asked him the question I ask every man in that chair. When's the last time you touched yourself? Or felt turned on? Or even wanted to? He looked at me like I'd spoken another language. He said, "I don't see the point anymore." That right there, that belief, is the trap. Not the drop in testosterone. But the moment a man stops sending his body the message that he still wants to feel alive. Because here's what most men don't realize. Your body is always listening. And when it notices that you're not engaging with pleasure, intimacy, or desire, it downregulates. It dials back the systems it thinks you no longer need. Blood flow, muscle recovery, mood regulation, hormone production. It's not punishing you. It's adapting. Conserving energy for survival instead of vitality. So I asked Frank if he was willing to try something. Not hormone therapy. Not medication. Just a few minutes a day. Breath. Touch. Presence. No pressure to climax. Just connection, with himself. It felt weird at first, he admitted later. But over the next 2 months, something happened. He started sleeping through the night. His voice carried more weight. He moved like a man who remembered who he was. And when we rechecked his testosterone, it had risen, naturally. He wasn't taking anything. He was simply reminding his body that he still needed that part of himself. That he wasn't done. There's data to back this up. Studies show that sexual activity, even solo, can create short-term boosts in testosterone. Even just erotic imagination has been shown to shift hormone levels, improve mood, and activate brain centers tied to confidence and drive. Because testosterone doesn't just make you want to act like a man. Acting like a man keeps your testosterone alive. And I don't mean acting tough or pushing through pain. I mean staying engaged with your own body. Staying curious. Staying awake to what still turns you on, even if it's quiet now. Even if it takes time to find again. Because when you ignore your sexual self, your testosterone listens. But when you reconnect with it, gently, intentionally, you signal life. And your body responds in kind. Low testosterone isn't just about sex drive. It's linked to depression, heart disease, cognitive decline, type 2 diabetes, and even shortened lifespan. It is not just a number. It's a mirror, reflecting how much life you're still allowing yourself to feel. And the beautiful part? You don't need a partner. You don't need porn. You don't need permission. You just need a willingness to come back to yourself. But if you've ever tried and felt like it didn't work, like your body wasn't responding, there's one more piece of the puzzle you need to understand. Because while testosterone fades with disconnection, erections disappear with disuse. And what happens down there is about far more than pleasure. It's about blood flow, heart health, and long-term vitality. Let's talk about that next. Number 5. The vascular warning: erections are about more than sex. It's about blood flow, heart health, and long-term vitality. And this is where most men get it dangerously wrong. They think if they're not having sex, erections don't matter. They think it's something optional, something that only counts if it leads somewhere. But the truth is this. Your erections are not just about sex. They're about your cardiovascular system, your nerve health, your biological age. They're a vital sign, just like blood pressure or pulse. Let me tell you about Harold. He was 69. Sharp guy. Former engineer. Took care of himself, ate reasonably well, walked daily. But he hadn't had an erection in over 6 years. Not because he was impotent. He just never saw the point. His wife had passed. He wasn't dating. And in his words, that chapter's closed. When we ran his labs, they weren't terrible. But when I did a vascular screen, his circulation told a different story. Low elasticity. Sluggish blood flow. Signs of early arterial stiffening, something you usually see in much older men. And that's when I had to say it to him straight. Harold, your penis is the canary in the coal mine. It's the first place blood stops flowing when your vascular system is under stress. And the last place it returns to when things start healing. Why? Because erections require fine-tuned, high-pressure blood flow. If anything's off, your heart, your vessels, your nitric oxide levels, you'll see it there first. Before chest pain. Before high blood pressure. Before a stroke. The problem? When you don't have regular erections, through sexual activity or even just arousal, your body begins to downshift. The smooth muscle in the penis starts to atrophy. The blood vessels stiffen. Oxygenation drops. And over time, fibrosis begins, the tissue becomes less elastic, less responsive. And that's not just an inconvenience. That's a form of biological decay. It's the reason some men hit 70, meet someone they actually connect with, and find themselves devastated when their body can't follow through. Not because the desire is gone, but because the system was shut down for too long. It's use it or lose it. Plain and simple. Regular erections help. Maintain blood vessel flexibility. Keep nitric oxide levels steady. Preserve nerve responsiveness. And prevent long-term atrophy. And no, they don't have to involve orgasm or even touching yourself. Arousal alone, just the process of becoming erect, keeps the system alive. But here's where it goes even deeper. When the system starts to shut down, it doesn't just affect your physical body. It seeps into your mind. Your confidence. Your identity. You stop feeling like yourself. You stop initiating connection. You avoid intimacy, not because you don't want it, but because you're scared your body won't show up. And that avoidance creates emotional shrinkage. Isolation. Depression. Even early signs of cognitive decline. I've seen it happen more times than I care to count. Not overnight. But slowly. Quietly. Completely preventable. And the fix? You remind your body that it still matters. That this system is still needed. That you haven't surrendered. Erections, spontaneous, natural, or intentional, are a signal to your brain and your body that you're still in the game. Still alive. Still worthy of circulation, energy, and vitality. So even if you're not sexually active, don't write this part of yourself off. Because your heart doesn't know the difference. It just knows whether blood is flowing, or not. And if you've made it this far, I know you're not looking for surface-level answers. You want to feel like yourself again. But what if I told you there's something even more damaging than disuse? Something that hijacks your brain every time you reach for it. Something so common, it's become normalized, even celebrated. And yet, it might be the very reason your sensitivity is fading, your arousal is flat, and your joy is slipping through the cracks. It's not age. It's not weakness. It's porn. And it's changing your brain in ways most men never realize, until it's too late. Let's talk about it next. Number 6. The digital hijack, how porn tricks your brain into feeling less. Until it's too late. And that's exactly what pornography does to far too many men. Not because you're weak. Not because you're addicted. But because no one ever told you how powerful it really is. How silently it rewires your brain. How it takes something natural, your desire, and turns it into something mechanical. Detached. And eventually, numb. I've had countless men in their 60s and 70s sit across from me, hesitant, almost embarrassed, and say, "Yeah, I still watch porn, not every day. Just sometimes. It's not like I'm obsessed or anything." And they're right. They're not chasing some thrill. They're chasing a connection they no longer feel anywhere else. A memory. A flicker of who they used to be. But here's the part no one prepared them for. The porn they're watching now. It's nothing like what they grew up with. What used to be a few magazines or grainy VHS tapes is now high-speed, high-definition, multi-tab digital overload. And your brain, especially as you age, isn't built to handle that. Every time you watch it, your brain releases dopamine. That's your motivation, pleasure, and reward chemical. But just like with any drug, the more often it's triggered, the more you need to get the same effect. More novelty. More intensity. More extreme content. And little by little, what used to excite you, no longer does. That's not about preference. That's neurochemistry. Your reward circuits get desensitized. Your real-life sensitivity starts to drop. You find it harder to feel aroused by simple touch, connection, or even imagination. And over time, erections weaken. Orgasm becomes harder. You might only be able to finish with porn, not without it. Some men even develop porn-induced erectile dysfunction, PID, completely unable to respond in the absence of screams. But they don't connect the dots. They think something's wrong with their body. When really, it's their brain that's been rewired. And the spiral begins. Shame. Frustration. Avoidance. Withdrawal. I had a patient once, late 60s, divorced, lived alone. He told me he couldn't feel much anymore. Hadn't been with anyone in years. Still watched porn a few times a week. But said it just felt like going through the motions. No joy. No real pleasure. Just habit. And that's exactly what porn does over time. It replaces feeling with habit. It trains your arousal to depend on something external, fast, visual, exaggerated. Instead of internal, slow, emotional, alive. But here's the good news. You can heal. Your brain is neuroplastic, even after 60. It can unlearn. It can reset. But it takes a break. Some men go 30 days without any visual stimulation. Others start smaller, cutting back gradually, focusing on imagination, touch, breath. The point isn't to give up pleasure. It's to reclaim it. Make it yours again. Bring it back into your body, not just your screen. Because when you do, things change. Sensitivity returns. Erections become stronger. You respond to you again, not just pixels. Your mood lifts. And maybe most importantly, your confidence comes back. And this isn't about morality. I'm not here to shame you. I'm here to help you feel alive again. You deserve pleasure that's real. That's grounded. That stays with you after the screen turns off. And if porn has slowly dulled your senses, there's something else that might be doing even more damage. Not because of what you're watching, but because of what you're missing. Because while screens hijack your arousal, isolation hijacks your spirit. And when you go too long without being touched, not just sexually, but humanly, your body starts to shut down in ways you never expected. Let's talk about the most dangerous mistake older men make. The one no one sees coming until it's already taken too much. Let's talk about isolation. Number 7. The final danger, when no one touches you for too long. Not the kind that just means you live alone. I'm talking about the kind of isolation that happens slowly, quietly, when no one touches you. When days turn into weeks, then months, and then years. And your body forgets what it feels like to be held. No hug. No hand on the back. No skin on skin. Not even your own. I remember a man named Peter. He was 76. Retired engineer. Well-spoken, neat, polite to the bone. He came in for something simple, joint stiffness, I think. But as we talked, I noticed something in his voice. Not sadness. Not depression. Something worse, resignation. So I asked him gently. When's the last time someone touched you? He paused. Thought about it. Then quietly said, it's been over a year, I think. Maybe longer. And he didn't say it with tears. He said it like it was just another fact. Like it didn't matter. Like it was normal. But it's not. It's not normal. It's dangerous. Because the human body, no matter how old, is wired for touch. It's not a luxury. It's not a bonus. It's a biological need. When we go too long without physical contact, our nervous system begins to retreat. Oxytocin drops. Cortisol climbs. Blood pressure rises. Immune response weakens. Sleep becomes shallow. And the brain? It starts to downregulate emotional and sensory circuits to protect you. In other words, you begin to go numb. Not just in your skin, but in your spirit. You stop seeking out connection. You stop feeling the urgency to engage. And slowly, you stop believing there's anything left to feel at all. And the scariest part? This kind of isolation usually starts in the bedroom. Not when you stop having sex with someone else. But when you stop touching yourself. When you stop reaching for your own body. Not out of lust. But out of care. Out of the simple need to feel alive. The brain doesn't know the difference. It just registers. No more contact. No more sensation. And then it starts to shut systems down to match. One skipped routine turns into a week. A week turns into avoiding mirrors. A month goes by, and you haven't imagined anything warm, or intimate, or pleasurable. That's the moment many men begin to disappear. Not from the world, but from themselves. And the effects go far beyond pleasure. We've seen it linked to depression, cognitive decline, immune dysfunction, even early death. Not because they were old, but because they were untouched, unseen, disconnected. I'm not saying you need a partner, or that you have to chase physical intimacy. I'm saying this. Your body needs to be reminded that it still matters. That it's still worth touching. That you're still here. Whether that's a hand on your chest, a slow breath with your eyes closed, or a few minutes of mindful solo touch before bed. It's not about sex. It's about not giving up on yourself. Because I've seen what happens when a man starts to reconnect. His face changes. He carries himself differently. He starts making eye contact again. He doesn't just look better. He comes back to life. And if you've made it this far, if something in this speaks to you, then what comes next may be the most important part of all. Because now that you've seen the truth about shame, silence, hormones, erections, porn, and isolation, the real question is, what now? I'm going to show you what I give every man who's ready to begin again. A simple daily ritual. 10 minutes. No screens. No pressure. Just you, and your willingness to return to yourself. Let's walk through it together. Because after everything you've heard, after the truth about mindless habits, prostate pressure, buried shame, fading testosterone, forgotten erections, digital hijacking, and dangerous isolation, you might be wondering, so what do I actually do now? And the answer isn't some expensive supplement. It's not a pill. It's not another appointment. It's not a program or a device or a 5-step performance plan. It's this. You return to yourself. You reclaim your body the same way a man reclaims a quiet room he once loved. Not with noise. Not with force. But with presence. I call it the gentle protocol. And it's simple. 10 minutes a day. Just you. No distractions. No goal. No need to climax. Just breath, stillness, and touch. You find a quiet place. You close the door. You sit or lie down. You put your hand on your chest first, just to remind your body you're listening. Then slowly, without urgency, you begin to feel your skin again. Your breath. Your weight. Your warmth. If it leads to arousal, let it. If it doesn't, that's okay too. This isn't about release. It's about reconnection. You're not chasing pleasure. You're building safety. You're retraining your nervous system to stop bracing, stop hiding, and start trusting again. Because that's what most men are missing. Not testosterone. Not technique. Trust. Trust in their body. Trust in their ability to feel. Trust in the fact that they're still here, still worthy, still whole. Every man I've given this to, every one, has come back weeks later with the same look in his eye. Not like he's 25 again. But like he remembered something. A spark. A rhythm. A soft strength that had been waiting inside him all along. That's what this is about. Not saving your sex life. Not chasing your youth. But quietly reclaiming a part of you that was never supposed to be abandoned in the first place. Because despite what the world says, you are not invisible. You are not broken. You are not too late. And if you've been living in silence, if you've been shrinking slowly, if you've been avoiding mirrors, or feeling like your body is some place you don't recognize anymore, I want you to hear this. You are still in there. And you don't need anyone's permission to come back. This practice isn't about what you do with your hands. It's about what you do with your attention. With your intention. With your kindness toward yourself. Because when you treat your body like it still matters, it starts to believe you. And slowly, it responds. Hormones shift. Erections return. Sleep improves. Shame softens. Confidence rebuilds. Not overnight. But steadily. Like a man who's not rushing anymore. Because he knows exactly where he's going. Home. So if you've made it this far, you already have everything you need to begin. Not because you're ready, but because you're willing. Start small. Start quiet. Start with one gentle moment. And let your body remember how to trust you again. You don't need to be perfect. You just need to show up. And if this message spoke to you, if something inside you stirred while listening, drop a 1 in the comments so I know you're still with me. Still listening. Still here. And if you want to support this message, if you believe other men deserve to hear it, consider sharing this video, subscribing, or supporting the channel below. It helps me reach more men who've spent too long in silence. Because this is the kind of truth no one tells us. But it's the truth we all deserve to hear. You are still here. And that still matters.